What do you get when you mix Contra, Castlevania, and a dash of Shinobi together? Well, you get Wallachia Reign of Dracula from Megami Games, a studio better known for their Castlevania fan games. This, however, is an original title and is now out on the Nintendo Switch, and we're going to see how it is. The narrative is a simple story of revenge. Elsin is out hunting one day. When she returns home, she spots it ablaze, her family slain, and her brother taken away by the brutal warmonger, Vlad Dracula. Taken in by an old man, her and her doggo plot their revenge and are ordered by a warlord to take Vlad's head, which she gladly accepts the challenge. You're supposed to go on a journey with your dog, old man, and a couple of sidekicks. However, they are incredibly sidelined to the point where you forget you're supposed to be with them. But that's fine, the narrative is not the focus in Wallachia, but I did enjoy the stylized opening, which had far more meat to it than I expected it to. In terms of gameplay, Wallachia is a pretty perfect coming together of Contra-style gameplay with a Castlevania aesthetic, two Konami series blending perfectly in an arcade run-and-gun style game. Please bear in mind that this is firmly an arcade action game. This is not a Metroidvania. This is not your classic slow-paced, meticulous Castlevania. This is balls to the wall, non-stop shooting, barrage of arrows dodging, run-and-gun action. It's Contra. Your character Elsin is a bit of a beast when it comes to her abilities, especially with a bow and arrow. She can fire a constant stream of arrows without pause. Where she gets them from, I don't want to know. But with the way she can take down the never-ending waves of bad dudes, you're happy for it. She can fire the arrows in 8 directions, giving you nice flexibility, although some of your adversaries seem to have like full 360 aiming, which seems less fair, but them's the breaks. You can charge your shot for an extra powerful attack and even upgrade your arrows and collect different types. The different arrow types are scarce, so you won't exactly be spoiled for choice, but it's nice to have the chance to use the spread arrow and such when you're in a bit of a tight spot. And tight spots you will be in. There are 3 difficulties. I played on normal as per, but Wallachia will put up a very stern test. As I said, this is arcade in nature, and the thirst for your coins is present. Obviously you can't add any more coins once you've paid for the damn thing, but be prepared to get your ass beaten plenty of times and see the game over screen more than you'd like to. On normal, it's 3 deaths and game over. Thankfully, you're not thrown back to the beginning of the game, just at the start of the level, but even that is still quite daunting. Making it to the end of a level is no mean feat, no matter how many times you try. You do get to learn the patterns and quirks of the levels though. They are predictable and play the same every time. So even though they may still test your skills, you can start to anticipate what's coming up. Once you've completed the game a couple of times, you'll probably be a master of it. In order to try and not die, you'll have to take advantage of Elsin's other abilities. She has a very necessary double jump, which isn't quite as overpowered as we may be used to in some other games. She has a sword for melee attacks, but you'll want to avoid CQC as much as possible. The sword is more useful for parrying arrows that shoot your way. It took a while for me to get used to it, but once you do, you'll find it life-saving. Another mechanic that took me even more time to get used to is the slide. Now when I say get used to in these regards, what I mean is actually remember that they're there. They're all mechanically sound, I just often forgot that I had them in my arsenal. I mean, the slide is pretty much essential for one of the bosses, and it took forever for me to get a slap in the face of realization. Maybe just use it, you know? You also have a special attack or ability which can be used once you've collected enough black orbs. Each of your companions presents you with a different ability, each with a different amount of orbs needed. Your doggo gives a very powerful frontal attack, whereas another dude will grant you invincibility for a short time, although you'll need a lot of orbs for that. And guess what? I often forgot to use these abilities as well. Overall, in terms of gameplay, it's relentless. Mixing Contra with Castlevania as an aesthetic and, Shinobi-style platforming, you've got yourself a fantastic arcadey time. But that's about as far as it goes. It's a very simple, one-track mind type of game. This is not some grand adventure, it's a quick blast. It's an arcade game, and arcade games can only go so far these days in terms of what they have to offer. I really enjoyed playing this, but I know despite it being made well, it is very basic. Very fun, but very basic. If you want a Contra or Shinobi game, then this will be great. If you want something more, then you'll be disappointed. So please go in with the right mindset. The presentation for Wallachia is pretty top notch, at least for what it's going for. Those giant early 90s arcade sprites, that the Super Nintendo and Mega Drive could only dream of, are nicely on show here. The backgrounds are often fantastic with often multiple layers of details. Enemy types, especially the standard grunts, are a little bit uninteresting sadly, and the animation of your character looks a little funky to someone who's looking over your shoulder. Obviously you're too busy dodging and attacking and platforming to notice how odd the character looks while doing all this at high speeds, but how else are you supposed to animate someone who can shoot single arrows every millisecond? The music is pretty top notch too. I'm not gonna go overboard and say it's excellent, but I think it fits the aesthetic well. You won't be surprised to see similarities to something you'd find in Castlevania games. Nicely rocking with some also, creepier aspects too. The composer really knows what he's working with and did a good job with this one. I'd also like to praise the voice acting. Now, I'm not going to say it's perfect, but usually for a game like this, you'd end up hearing the developer's uncle doing voice work in return for a cup of tea. I understand, budgets are what they are, but here the voice acting is surprisingly good for most of the characters. It goes beyond the cheesy B-move voice acting that you'd be expecting for a game like this. So they did a good job here. On the eShop, Wallachia is releasing for the nice price of $14.99 in the US, but there is a small discount for a couple of weeks, 20% off, which you should probably take advantage of if you're planning on picking this up. For an arcade-style game, it may be on the little expensive side compared to what you can get from the Arcade Archive series, but, I would not bat an eyelid at the, $12 discount price it's at now. Seems spot on to me. Sure, if you blast through the campaign without dying, this is less than an hour for sure. But if you're like me, it's going to take quite a lot longer than that to memorize the bosses and enemy layouts. Plus, there's extra minigames which, personally added nothing for me, but they are there. I can see myself replaying this one just as I would replay a classic Castlevania game or Contra game. Your mileage depends on how many times you want to go through it. If you don't want to go digitally, and you're like me, you like a good physical edition, then Wallachia, this is available for a reasonable price in both Europe and North America as a physical version. The European version and North American version each have their own unique cover art. You can get the European version from Pixel Heart's website, pixelheart.eu, or if you're in North America, it's available exclusively at VGNY's website. And I have to say, I think that they've won the cover wars for this one. That looks lovely. Not that the European one is bad or anything, that is still good, but the North American one, yeah, that's pretty sexy. Overall, okay, if Wallachia had been released in arcades in the early to mid-90s, there's no doubt in my mind that this would be considered an all-time classic. As it stands, as a modern-day release, aiming for that style of gameplay, it's good. It's good enough for those seeking this type of retro action with slick controls, presentation, and crushing difficulty. Please don't go in expecting Symphony of the Night with this one, and you'll find yourself having a very pleasant, challenging experience that, you wish you could have had back in the day. For me, this is a 7 out of 10. It's good. It is good. Alright, many thanks to our executive producers, Gannicus, Jonathan Rumor, Dane Wilkinson, Brent McLean, and God of Resin, plus our other YouTube members. Thank you greatly for your support. It means the world to us. Plus you, yes you, watching right now. As always, if you watched all the way to this point, then you are a legend. The longer that you watch, the more it helps us out, really. Leave a like, a comment, and perhaps check out one of our other videos that may take your fancy. We'll see you guys over there. Have a great day.